Hey everyone, we are super excited to be spreading awareness and destigmatizing mental health in the Black and Brown communities.
This podcast is a safe place for us to discuss our adversities and even our shortcomings. We all have a story.
Just remember, no matter what we go through, our story goes on. What's up, everyone? Welcome back. We are in episode 6 for Our Story Goes On, which is kind of crazy because everything is going by so fast. So I'm glad to be here with you all. And I am feeling good today. And we are in August. So almost done with the summer. But the last couple of weeks of summer is going to be fun, hopefully. Got a couple of things planned. I am going to Made in America in Philly, Labor Day weekend, and I am so excited. So I'm kind of wanting for August to rush because it is Labor Day weekend, Made in America, and I just cannot wait to see Bad Bunny. For all of you who know me, know that I am absolutely obsessed with him and have been, though, way before everybody else was. I just want to say that. I've been a fan of Bad Bunny for years, and I know I'm so happy that he's becoming more global now than ever, but I'm excited. So I'm also more excited for the fall lately, and I think that's because, I love the fall. I got married in the fall for a reason, but I think because last summer I was planning our wedding so much, and I was so overwhelmed with all the planning, and I kind of lost I guess I just was too busy to really enjoy the fall, and so we got married a little bit towards the end of October. And I feel I guess this time I'm more can focus on the fall, I guess, in a sense. Because I even think even the year before that, I was still kind of doing wedding stuff. My sister had been planning kind of an engagement party for us. And that was also in October. We wanted to try to make it for the year before. And so I'm just excited for what's to come. So, but yeah, that's really it with me for this week. I hope everyone is doing really well as well. And for today's episode, we're going to be discussing burnout and what it looks like. So, burnout is our body and brain's response to prolonged physical, mental, and emotional stress. In most cases, burnout occurs at your place of work. Usually we may become discouraged at this time, and it can negatively affect our performance at work and also increase self-criticism. But it can also appear in other areas of our life, such as parenting, caretaking, even romantic relationships. But when you hear the word burnout, most people think of work because unfortunately, that's where we spend most of our days and hours of the week and day. So now, according to an article written in World Psychiatry, the 3 key dimensions of the burnout response is an overwhelming exhaustion, so feeling really tired all the time, feelings of cynicism and detachment from your job, and a feeling of lack of accomplishment. So they say those are the 3 key dimensions when it comes to the burnout psychologically, in a sense. So like I said, feeling overwhelmingly tired, and detachment from the job is a really big one, I think, because when you start to feel burnt out, you are no longer really attached to the job, right? You're now more focused on wow, I'm so tired and I still need to go to work, right? Or I still need to make a living. So that can be a lot. So what causes a burnout? So burnout is not simply a result of working too much or taking on too many tasks. Yes, this all plays a role, but it's not the end result, if that makes sense. So according to Psychology Today, the cynicism, the low mood / depression, and exhaustion, as mentioned before, most often occur when a person does not feel in control of how a job is carried out, either at work or at home, or is asked to complete tasks that are not really aligned with their sense of self. And in addition, lacking support or working towards a goal that doesn't resonate with you can be also as equally pressing. Now, I think a lot of this in terms of the control aspect is a really big thing, right? Because many of us at our jobs, unfortunately, may feel burnt out because maybe your supervisor or your boss is telling you to do certain things and you're maybe not comfortable with it. Or maybe it's just not really aligned with how you see yourself in the future or long term, let's say. So I think a lot of that is when you're starting to feel like you're losing control, that's when the anxiety starts to increase, the stress starts to increase, and perhaps even the depression because you're not in control of that. And again, with this sense of self too, because I know that our jobs are not our whole being. I know that it's not all of us, all up. I know that we are more than our job, but it's a big part of us, right? Especially if the job that you have is something that you're passionate about. So, for people who may have gone to school for a long time for their job, or for people who are like business owners who take a lot of time out of their day to make sure that their business is going to stay afloat and all of that. And even for people who may not have gone to school for a long time or who are not business owners, still like you want to make sure that your job is at least something that you feel is connected to you in a sense, right? And even if it's temporary, because at the end of the day, that's your job. And so who wants to feel this way every single time they're at work? So, how do you know that you are burnt out? So, some signs of burnout is unexplained exhaustion. So, feeling like you're tired and not because I don't know, like, we may feel tired because of a lot of different reasons, but it's more like the unexplained exhaustion that has nothing to like everything to do with but work in a sense. Another sign of it is a sense of dread about work. So, again, this is also very normal, right? I think we've all at one point in our lives have felt some form of dread to go into work, right? Maybe it's a Monday, you had a really good weekend and you don't want to go into work. Or the opposite, right? Maybe you had a really bad weekend and you definitely don't want to go to work because you just don't want to spend your Monday at work. So, but it's a little bit more than that. It's just like a sense of dread all the time going into work. Like, ugh, I have to go to work. I have to do this. I have to do that. Because that sense of dread can cause increased levels of stress, right? It can make you feel like you're not connected to what you're doing every single day. And that's really difficult. Another sign of it is being easily irritable or angry. We're quick to snap, right? We're quick to talk back to people in a way that's probably not very respectful or whatever it may be, right? So that's another sign of burnout. Another one is also being overly negative slash critical, perhaps of yourself, of maybe other people around you as well, but primarily of yourself, because again, you're feeling burnt out and you're not feeling attached to what's going on. And perhaps the tasks that you are, set to do or are asked to do, and you're just not feeling like you're good at it, for example. So that's where the criticism and the being negative towards yourself can come in. Another sign is lack of motivation, and I think this also connects with like the dread aspect of it, because when you are feeling like you are dreading work, you most likely don't have a lot of motivation to get up and go to work, right? And I always say that work motivates us all to make money in a sense, because we have to all make money, right? And so, yes, work is what gets us out of bed mostly. Work is what makes sure that we are making a living for ourselves, for our family. So, yes, we are motivated to get up because there's a paycheck at the end of it, right? But you're rolling out of bed and you're like, in a sense of like, I really don't want to do this. You don't feel motivated to do it, but you just kind of have to. Because I think there's a really big difference, right, between feeling motivated and excited to go to work, because it's not just about money, right? But again, the dread and the lack of motivation, I think that all relates to it. And the last sign of course, these are not all the signs, but these are just a few signs. And the last one I want to mention is trouble sleeping. So your inability to have a good night's sleep could really be related to feeling burnt out, and that's because you're probably worried about what's happening at work or what's to come at work. Maybe you're overthinking some of the things that you are performing at work or at home, right? So like I said, burnout is not always about work, and I know we're using work as the primary issue here, but a lot of it could just be it's taken up a lot of your brain in a sense, right? And what I mean by that is that you're only thinking about work, and you come home and you think about it. You're going into work and you're thinking about it. So that can cause a lot of sleep issues. So that's the last sign that I wanted to talk about. So burnout is more common in the healthcare profession, is what I have come across in my research and just what I've noticed. So by healthcare, I mean doctors. I think read like police officers have a higher burnout, and I also believe maybe lawyers, but don't quote me on that. But I did see healthcare professionals, and the thing about being in healthcare, and of course, and therapists too, like therapists and social workers, also a higher level of burnout. And I think the reason for that, especially in that field when it comes to therapists, social workers, is that we are tasked in a sense to take care of others, right? Doctors do too. Doctors see you for evaluations, might have to diagnose you with something, help you with medicine, blah, 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 all that good stuff, right? But I think then that's kind of like when therapists have to then, like, let's say that you had a diagnosis of cancer or terminal illness that, whatever it may be. And then you think, I want to go to therapy. I want to be able to talk about this. I want to be able to not feel so sad about this all the time. And of course, this is just one example, but now we're kind of tasked to take that on. So, in order to be a therapist, I believe that you need to have a lot of empathy towards a person. And there's a difference between empathy and sympathy, right? So, I'm able to empathize with my clients, even though I may not go through half of what they've been through. Most of the time, I haven't gone through half of what my clients have been through. And that is something that I have to basically understand when I am in session with them. They're coming to me for all their issues, childhood issues, current issues, especially like right now in my current job, I work with a lot of active duty military members that deal with a whole array of things, job issues, deployment, post traumatic stress that comes with that, et cetera, et cetera. So, what I'm trying to say is that I believe the burnout level for therapists, depending of course on where you are and stuff, can become a little bit more prominent because you're not only taking care of yourself, but now you kind of are taking care of somebody else. Now, I'm not saying that therapists have the responsibility of that, but they come to us to talk, and I certainly wouldn't want to go to a therapist that's just going to sit there, right, and not listen, not give me some kind of guidance, right? And so that's what we take on, and so that can cause burnout. But I think also in the other end of things, that what could really cause burnout is the amount of things that we're expected to do and clients that we're expected to take. So if you're in the field or if you're not, you understand that, you're in grad school, you receive your master's, and if you want to go for past your master's, your doctorate. But either way, most of the time, looking for a job right out of grad school can be difficult, right? Because you have like your provisional or your associate license, which means that you are a licensed clinician in the state that you are in, but you're not fully licensed. You're not independently licensed, which we've all have had to go through. So I am an independently licensed clinician, but I was at one point, right, an associate licensed clinician where I was tasked I had to do a certain amount of hours to be able to get my independent advanced licensure, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, not every therapist goes this route, because I do have friends that have gone straight into private practice. And I believe that private practice is a little bit slower paced. It's not as intense. You're not really necessarily dealing with as many clients, or you usually have the ability to have control of your caseload. It's very flexible. You come in when you want, you leave when you want. But if you're not going into private practice, you're most likely going into organizations or agencies that have waiting lists, that have highly acute clients, that their symptoms or conditions are a little bit more intense, may need a higher level of care. And also, the agency most likely expects you to see a ton of clients. Like your caseload could be upwards to like 40 to 50 clients. And of course, that's not a week, but that's depending on where you are. That could be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and eventually discharge. But I remember my first job out of grad school and it was awful. Like I could not stand that job and I was really burnt out, and I had only been out of school for what, 3 months. And you're going into your first job out of grad school, you're super nervous, but you're super excited. But by month 2, I knew that I needed to get out. And the reason for that is because of the burnout and the stress and the ethics behind that agency. It was just awful. I was expected to see so many clients in one day that it was nearly impossible to see as many clients as they expected me, quote unquote, to see. And it was a lot. So that's just one example of burnout. And the only good thing that came out of that job was the people I met. I have friends now, that long life friends, I believe, that I met through there. And one of them is also my husband. We met at that agency, and I'm grateful for the experience there. I knew what to look out for, what not to look out for when I eventually left. But it was just so crazy to me to think, wow, I'm 6 months or however long out of grad school and I'm already burnt out. And so it discouraged me, and again, it made me to the point where I didn't want to go to work. I wasn't feeling like I was giving my full potential to my clients. And that's not fair, right? So um I want to discuss, though, the difference between burnout and stress, because I think people tend to confuse them. So you may think that a lot of what we've been talking about sounds like stress, and it does, but there are key differences. So the one thing about stress is that there's usually an end in sight. Although it may be difficult to see that end, to see that light at the end of the tunnel, you probably most likely know that there is an end in sight. Burnout, on the other hand, is just a cycle of negative emotions, extreme fatigue, and kind of almost hopelessness in your tasks, And it's also about, the biggest thing I think is also about that lack of motivation, the lack of motivation to go on, to complete these tasks, to wonder, is this worth it? That's burnout. You don't usually have those questions, or you're not usually questioning those kind of things when you're feeling just stressed. So that's like the key difference between burnout and stress. So with all of that being said, how do we deal with burnout? So the first thing I would recommend is to identify your stressors, whether at work or at home. Understanding your stress triggers can help start preventing them from happening. So, trying to identify what exactly is the most stressful part of your job or your time at home, whatever is burning you out, identify it. Sit down, open a notebook, and write it down and start from there. The second way to deal with burnout is to stress manage through meditation, other mindfulness activities, and exercise. So those are all ways that you can try to deal with burnout, is by managing that stress that does come with it. The third thing I would recommend is to do things that you enjoy outside of work, making sure to try your very best to not make it the only thing that you are doing. So do things that you enjoy. Maybe hanging out with friends and family is something you enjoy, maybe playing an instrument, drawing, writing, spending some time outside, just making sure that you are doing that at least once a day, so that way you're able to take care of yourself through this time. Because unfortunately, there are many people right now who are burnt out and they don't see an end in sight, because they are stuck at this job, because they can't find another job, and that's really hard. So it's important to try your very best to manage this burnout to the best of your ability. And then the fourth one I would recommend is try to seek support from others. So in order to seek support from others, you may want to reach out to a coworker, maybe reach out to a friend that may be going through something similar, or ask if they've ever been through something similar, and go from there. So those are ways to deal with burnout. Now, I also think A lot of this is about boundary building at work. Now, I know that we discussed how to build boundaries in our previous episode this season. And I also think that's super important at work because that's also a way to deal with perhaps knowing when you can seek support, maybe from a boss. And I know, like, you may be thinking, well, my boss sucks, or I don't feel that I can depend on this person because they're the ones who are making me feel burnt out. And I totally get that. However, if you have the ability to set that boundary of saying no at work, don't overdo it. Don't say yes to tasks because you are scared that you might be reprimanded or that you're not a team player. Try your very best to think about that for big picture. Like, if I say no to this, is it really going to come true that I will be fired? And if you are at a job like that where they're asking you to do a lot and you're that scared or anxious that they're going to fire you if you say no to that, I think it's time to maybe start looking for a new job to the best of your ability, of course. And another way that you can boundary build at work is to set regular breaks throughout your day. And hopefully they'll be able to accommodate that in some sense. But even if it's just for you, where you know that you need to do that for yourself, make sure that you do that. And I think this is great for those who do work at home as well, is that you have way more control for doing that because you're able to set those regular scheduled breaks because you're at home, right? No one's checking on you at an office. No one's like wondering what you're doing all the time. So setting those breaks, maybe like 15 minutes for every 2 hours or something, something that's going to allow you to recenter yourself and hopefully make you feel a little bit better. And also minimize multitasking. And that also goes with saying no to specific tasks. If you feel that you have to do like 5 things at once, or maybe even 5 things a day, it's going to affect you if you feel like you need to do all those at once. Break those down a little bit. There's no reason to rush or to multitask like that to only increase your stress and all of that. All right. So that's what burnout is, and that's how to deal with burnout. And I really do hope that the boundary setting is something that will also resonate with people because I don't remember which episode it was. I think it was episode 2. I can't remember. But it's important, refer back to that episode if you need to, because it is really important to set those boundaries at work, or else you're just going to keep going downhill, and that's not good. All right, so we're going to end with our affirmation. And the affirmation I have for today is, I will listen to what my body is telling me to help better myself. Your body will tell you what it needs before anything else. So that's when we were talking about the fatigue, the feeling exhausted. That's your body's way of saying, you need to stop. We need to rethink this. All right, so make sure that you guys take care of yourselves, because at the end of the day, life's too short to, be stressing over making somebody else richer in a sense. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a great week, and we will see you next time for episode 7. I hope everyone has a great week. Take care.